Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to unpack some of the monumental shifts shaping our future.
That's right.
And today, we're plunging into a vision of tomorrow that's, well, it's so grand, it could really impact nearly half the human population.
It's huge. We're talking about the future Mark Zuckerberg is trying to build.
Exactly. And our conversation today is really centered around this fascinating interview he did with Cleo Abram. It's from her YouTube series, Huge Conversations.
Yeah, her goal was basically to paint a really clear picture of this, imagined future so that you, the audience, could decide what you make of it all.
And our mission here is similar, right? We want to distill the most vital insights from that conversation for you.
And that word impact. It's not an exaggeration. I mean, think about it. Nearly half of all humans already use Meta products.
It's staggering. So his vision isn't just like a hypothetical fantasy.
No, it's more like a blueprint for a potentially vast segment of our shared reality.
So let's try to navigate this evolving landscape together and understand the technologies that might just redefine how we connect and how we create.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Well, it starts like a lot of these tech shifts do, with the hardware.
Right.
And the centerpiece here, the foundational piece, it sounds like something straight out of a movie. Apparently someone on Zuckerberg's team called them the real-life Tony Stark glasses.
Okay, I've heard that. We're talking about Meta's cutting-edge augmented reality glasses.
And these aren't just, a concept on paper.
No, not at all. They're presented as the world's first full holographic AR glasses. It's the result of, 10 years? A decade of really intense R&D?
Yeah, and Zuckerberg really stresses how difficult they are to actually make. Like only a few thousand prototypes even exist right now.
And the real marvel, I think, is squeezing all that computing power, everything you need, into glasses that look, pretty normal.
Right. And they can project these full, vibrant holograms directly into the world around you.
Mm-hmm. And with a wide field of view, which is apparently crucial.
That seems key. So here's where you really need to use your imagination. Picture this. You're chatting with someone. You're physically there.
Okay.
But the person you're talking to, they're a full-body hologram right there in the room.
Wow. So not just like a flat video call on a screen.
Exactly. Fully interactive. Imagine playing, holographic ping pong.
Or poker, maybe, with virtual cards floating over your actual table.
Yeah. Or chess on a holographic board. That's the kind of immersive future he's painting.
And he frames this as the next major computing platform after phones.
Which is a big claim.
It is. But he makes this argument that phones, useful as they are, they're actually pretty unnatural.
How so?
Well, they pull your attention away from the world, right? You're looking down at this little rectangle.
Okay, yeah. I see that.
He believes the whole trend in computing is moving towards more ubiquity, more natural interaction, and importantly, deeper social connection.
So the glasses are meant to integrate digital stuff into our world, not pull us out of it.
That's the idea. Seamless integration.
The engineering behind this, when you think about putting it all in glasses, it's pretty mind-bending.
Oh, absolutely. You've got these micro projectors shooting light into incredibly thin waveguides.
With tiny, tiny nano etchings to create the holograms.
Right. And then there's eye tracking, cameras that actually have to illuminate your eyes to see where you're looking.
Plus batteries, microphones, speakers, all the sensors for spatial awareness.
Yeah, so the holograms stay locked in place as you move around.
And for the really heavy computing.
There's a radio link.
Yeah.
It connects to like a separate compute pack, maybe worn on your wrist or belt.
Yeah.
And often there's that wrist-based neural interface too.
Ah, yes, the neural interface. That sounds very sci-fi.
It does, but the idea is intuitive control, right? Detecting subtle nerve signals so you can interact almost by thinking or with tiny gestures. No bulky controllers needed eventually.
And Zuckerberg seems confident that these things will get better over time.
Yeah, he expects them to get cheaper, higher quality, smaller, and, more stylish. The usual tech progression curve.
What's interesting, though, is that Meta isn't just putting all its eggs in this one ultimate AR glasses basket.
No, that's a really important point. They're building out a whole spectrum, an ecosystem of devices.
Right. So, like, at one end, you have the displayless ones, the Ray-Ban Metas.
Exactly. Stylish, relatively affordable, mostly for voice interaction with AI. They thought of them as maybe an intro product first.
But now they see them as a permanent line.
Yeah, a significant category in themselves.
Okay. Then there's a middle ground.
The heads-up display glasses. Smaller field of view, maybe 20, 30 degrees. Not for full holograms, but great for quick things like AI text replies, directions, searching info.
So a visual element, but simpler. More accessible than full AR.
Right. More expensive than the Ray-Bans, but cheaper than the full holographic ones.
Which are the top tier. The Orion codename ones.
Yep. That's the premium, the science fiction future, as he calls it. But even then, the goal is to make them generally accessible eventually, like a PC.
And we shouldn't forget the headsets, right? The Quest line.
Definitely not. They're so crucial because, well, they can fit more processing power inside.
And their pricing strategy there, like with the Quest 3S at $299, Quest 3 at $500, it seems designed to get mixed reality out to lots of people.
Absolutely. It really reflects Meta's mission, trying to democratize advanced tech, not just keep it for the elites.
So the big takeaway on hardware is it's not one device to rule them all.
No, it's these 4 categories. Displayless, heads-up display, full holographic AR, and the full headsets. They all seem to have a long-term place in Meta's strategy.
Okay. So that's the hardware foundation. Impressive tech. But what's driving all this? What are the core values, the principles behind this massive effort?
Zuckerberg really boils it down to 2 main pillars, 2 big ideas.
Which are?
First, the feeling of presence, and second, personalized AI.
Let's start with presence. What does that mean exactly?
It's that deep, fundamental feeling of being physically there with another person, even if you're miles apart. Something current tech, like video calls, doesn't quite capture.
Right. Video calls can feel a bit flat.
Exactly. He calls achieving true presence the holy grail of social app design. He puts it in historical context, telegram, telephone, video call.
Yeah.
The next step is feeling like someone is right there.
He gave an example, didn't he? Something about his mom.
Yeah, wanting to lose in Scrabble to his mom and really feeling her presence, her reaction across the country. That's the goal.
It's a powerful image.
Yeah.
But what about touch? You mentioned holograms, interaction, but presence often involves a hug, right?
Yeah.
How do they address haptics?
Yeah, that's a huge challenge, and he admits it. Haptic simulating touch is incredibly difficult.
So no virtual hugs anytime soon.
Probably not full body ones. They're making progress, especially for hands-think controllers with force feedback for feeling a ping pong paddle hit a ball. But full force feedback, like for, practicing jujitsu virtually, that's way, way harder. He did mention eye contact is easier to achieve than touch.
And what about other senses, like smell, that's so tied to memory and presence?
He mentioned smell too, acknowledged its importance, but basically said it's a very difficult, very distant challenge for these kinds of devices.
So achieving presence isn't about perfectly replicating reality then?
It seems more about creating a convincing illusion. It's not about getting one thing perfectly right, but more about avoiding anything done wrong that breaks that sense of reality.
Like what kind of things?
Things like a narrow field of view, lag or latency, unrealistic physics, anything that reminds your brain this isn't real.
I remember that anecdote he shared about developing a virtual ping pong game.
Oh, yeah.
Dropping the virtual paddle, and instead of just vanishing, it shattered on the virtual floor. And they saw that as a win for realism.
Right, because it behaved unexpectedly but plausibly. That reinforces the illusion. It's those little details.
Fascinating. And what about how we look in this virtual space? The avatars.
Yeah, they found something interesting there. People are actually okay with mixing styles, like photorealistic avatars in a cartoony world, or vice versa.
Really? That's surprising.
What really matters, what breaks the immersion, is if the avatar's movements don't authentically match the person. The movement has to feel real, even if the look is stylized.
Okay, so presence is pillar 1. What's pillar 2?
Personalized AI. This is the other major track, driven by models like Llama and the Meta AI assistant.
And the key here is personalized.
Exactly. Zuckerberg's point is that AI models are getting smarter, sure, but their real power, their real usefulness, comes when they're tailored to you.
And how do you personalize AI?
It needs context. Lots of context. Not just general world knowledge, but knowing what's happening around you right now in your physical environment.
And that's where the glasses come back in.
Precisely. They're perfectly positioned right on your face to see what you see and hear what you hear. Those are our main senses for gathering immediate context.
Makes sense. So the 2 pillars together, this deep sense of presence plus truly personalized AI.
The aim is to create an experience that feels, in his words, deep and profound. A synthesis of connection and intelligence.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit. Thinking about these powerful tools, especially AI, what's the potential impact on society? on, say, human connection.
Yeah, it's a big question, especially when you look at some current trends.
Like what?
Well, there's data suggesting the average American has fewer close friends now than maybe 15 years ago.
I've seen headlines like that. And less face-to-face socializing, too.
A significant drop, apparently. Nearly 30% for adults over the last couple of decades, and even more dramatic for young adults, like 15 to 24-year-olds, almost 70% less in-person socializing.
Wow, 70%. That's huge.
And maybe the starkest stat, the percentage of Americans saying they have no close friends jumped from 3% to 12% in about 30 years.
So naturally, people worry. Are these new digital tools replacing real-world connections, making us lonelier?
It's a valid concern. But Zuckerberg offers a counter-argument. He suggests people often already lack the connections they want. Maybe they wish they had 10 friends, but only have 2 or 3.
Okay.
His argument is that these technologies won't necessarily replace your existing close relationships, like you won't spend less time with your spouse because of AR glasses.
Hopefully not.
Right. Instead, the idea is they could unlock more connection, maybe more quality time with your sister who lives far away, making that feel more present.
And he also points out that the decline in social connection started before things like smartphones and social media really took off.
Yeah, that the loss of social capital predates a lot of this modern tech. So maybe technology isn't the sole cause or even the main cause of that trend.
Interesting perspective. What about AI and struggle? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean. AI can obviously remove barriers, make hard things easier, like real-time translation.
The Star Trek Universal Translator dream.
Basically, yeah. Now, some worry, okay, if translation is perfect, why bother learning languages?
Right. Does it remove the incentive?
But Zuckerberg's point is, well, people still learn Latin and Greek, right? Languages with little direct functional use today. There are other reasons to learn.
Okay, fair point. But isn't struggle sometimes good? Like building muscle. If AI helps a kid articulate difficult emotions they're struggling with, are we removing a necessary part of their development?
That's the core question, isn't it? Zuckerberg's take is that humans will always find new things to struggle with. AI won't eliminate struggle. It'll just change what we struggle with.
How so?
He thinks it will elevate creativity, allow us to tackle much more complex projects. His analogy was coding.
Ah.
Soon, kids might be able to just describe incredibly complex software and AI will build it. The new struggle won't be debugging low-level code. It'll be refining their creative vision, explaining exactly what they want.
So the challenge shifts upwards to a higher level of abstraction.
Exactly. Like calculators didn't make basic math obsolete. You still need numeracy to understand the world.
Right, you need the concept.
Yeah. Similarly, he argues teaching kids coding basics is still valuable, not just for the output, but because it teaches rigorous thinking logic, even if AI does the heavy lifting later.
And applying that back to language learning.
Even with perfect translation, which Meta is actually rolling out for the Ray-Ban glasses, by the way.
Wow.
Learning a language still offers benefits. Understanding your own language better, appreciating other cultures. It just becomes less about pure function and more about, prioritization, what you choose to spend your limited time learning. So,
as we're talking through all this, this future with holographic presence AI, personalized AI, it's exciting, but maybe also a bit unsettling. The pace of change can feel overwhelming.
Absolutely. And Zuckerberg actually acknowledges that feeling. He validates it. He says it is unsettling when big changes are coming and you don't quite know what they'll look like.
Especially for certain fields.
Yeah, he mentioned the creative field specifically. It's competitive, and he expects AI will mean the overall quality of work just goes through the roof. Right. So creators will constantly need to adapt to keep up.
So what's his advice for navigating this? Just resist it.
No, quite the opposite. He advises staying curious, really digging into the new tools, trying to figure out how to use them to live better lives rather than fighting them.
And maybe not overhyping the difference.
Kind of. He suggests we might overstate how different the next 10 years will be from the last 10. The internet and smartphones already rewired things dramatically. He sees it as continuous evolution, not necessarily like a 0 to 1 break from everything we know.
That's useful framing. Another big topic in the AI space right now, open source.
Oh yeah, a huge debate.
Can you quickly explain what open source AI means in this context?
Sure. Basically, it means making the AI models themselves, the code, the weights publicly available so anyone can take them, look inside, modify them, build on top of them.
And Zuckerberg contrasts two different potential futures here, right?
Very starkly. Meta's vision is a future with many diverse AI systems. Think of it like apps or websites today, tons of them, maybe every business or creator having their own tailored AI, versus what he describes as some other companies aiming for one AI, a single, potentially massive, closed system that tries to do everything for you.
And this ties into safety concerns. Which approach is safer?
That's the core of the debate. Some argue closed models are safer because you can control who uses them, hopefully preventing bad actors from exploiting them.
Makes intuitive sense.
But Zuckerberg argues strongly the other way, drawing parallels to decades of open source software. He believes open source is actually safer and more secure in the long run.
Why? How does making it open make it safer?
Because more eyes are on it. Thousands, maybe millions of developers and researchers can scrutinize the system, find bugs, identify security flaws, and fix them much faster than a closed team ever could.
So collective intelligence for security.
Exactly. That distributed scrutiny, he argues, makes the models not just smarter, but safer for everyone. He genuinely seems to believe open source leads to a more prosperous and safer future.
It's a fundamentally different philosophy about development and risk.
Absolutely. It's about trusting the community versus central control.
Okay, so we've covered the hardware, the core values of presence in AI, the societal impacts, the open source debate. As we wrap up, what did Zuckerberg identify as the biggest, most critical open question that's really occupying his mind right now?
Yeah, he was asked about this. It really comes down to AI scaling.
Scaling, meaning?
Meaning how much better these AI models get as you feed them more data and throw more computing power at them. The current dominant architecture, the transformer models like behind Llama, GPT, they haven't found the end yet, as he put it.
They just keep getting better with more resources.
So far, yes. He gave examples. Llama 3 trained on, say, 10, 20,000 GPUs. Llama 4 is aiming for over 100,000. Llama 5, even more. They just keep scaling up the compute and data.
Okay, so what's the question then?
The core uncertainty, the really high-stakes question is, will this continue? Will these transformer models keep scaling effectively for a long time, maybe the next 10, 20 years, leading to continuously smarter, more useful AI? Or will they eventually hit a plateau, like previous AI architectures did? Will we reach a point where just adding more data and compute doesn't yield significant improvements, and we'll need new fundamental architectural breakthroughs to advance further?
Which would slow things down considerably.
Right. It would mean the pace of AI advancement might level off until the next big idea comes along.
And Meta's position on this?
He explicitly said Meta is betting hundreds of billions of dollars on the first scenario, that AI will continue to scale rapidly and advance significantly for the foreseeable future.
Wow. Hundreds of billions. That's quite a bet.
It's a massive bet. He called it a really big and high-stakes question, maybe one of the biggest in the entire industry right now. It fundamentally shapes their entire strategy.
So that really brings us to the end of this deep dive.
Yeah.
We've explored this expansive, exciting, maybe slightly daunting future Mark Zuckerberg is trying to architect.
Yeah, a future built on holographic presence, deeply personalized AI, and potentially new ways of thinking about connection and learning.
It's clear these technologies, if they develop as envisioned, could touch almost every part of our lives. Work, play, relationships.
Definitely profound potential changes.
So maybe the final thought to leave you, our listener, with is this. Given everything we've talked about, the new ways to connect AI weaving into daily life, the constant need to adapt, what aspect of this rapidly approaching future do you find yourself most drawn to, or perhaps most challenged by? What will you be grappling with